For decades, we've just accepted things like wrinkles, declining energy, and the onset of illness as the inevitable, unchangeable march of time. But what if they aren't? What if aging isn't just the passive ticking of a clock, but actually a highly intricate, active biochemical process? Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into what is arguably one of the most profound biological mysteries of our time. Because as it turns out, there might literally be a single master switch inside our cells that controls exactly how we age. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the biological aging mystery. Second, we'll meet the master switch. Third, how cells grow old. Fourth, hacking the aging process. And finally, number 5, the anti-aging catch. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the biological aging mystery, decline or disease. Now think about this for a second. Is aging an inevitable decline, or could it actually be a curable cellular condition? Back in the 1950s, this was a totally unsolved mystery. Nobody really knew. But today, science is radically shifting our perspective. We are actually beginning to view aging as a biological process that we can study, track, and maybe even treat. For the longest time, scientists were frankly overwhelmed by the sheer number of things that cause aging. It's like a giant biological puzzle. You've got genetic mutations and DNA damage that just pile up over time. You have reactive oxygen species causing deep mitochondrial damage. You've got long-lived proteins misfolding. There's even autoimmunity, which is when your body literally forgets how to distinguish friend from foe. It's a lot, right? And researchers searched desperately for a singular regulatory hub that linked all of this chaos together. Which brings us perfectly to section 2. Meet the master switch, the secret in the soil. The discovery of that singular link is fascinating because it started in the most unlikely place imaginable: dirt. Seriously, in the early 1970s, researchers were analyzing soil samples from Easter Island, known natively as Rapa Nui, and they found a bacterium producing a highly unique compound. They named it rapamycin. At first, it was just used as an antifungal, but by 1984, scientists noticed it actively suppressed cell growth, which meant it had massive anti-cancer potential. Then came the absolute breakthrough in 1991. Scientists found the exact genes in yeast that rapamycin was targeting. They literally named them the mTor genes, target of rapamycin. By 1999, it was fully approved for medical use, and this led researchers straight to the mammalian version of this exact same pathway. The master switch had finally been found. So what exactly is this switch? Well, mTor stands for the mammalian target of rapamycin. You can think of it as your body's master cellular contractor. And this contractor operates using 2 distinct complexes, mTOR C1 and mTOR C2. They each have really unique protein partners. mTOR C1 uses a regulatory protein called Raptor, while mTOR C2 uses a totally different protein called Richter. These distinct structures dictate entirely different, highly specialized jobs within your cells. Let's compare what those jobs actually are. The mTOR C1 pathway acts like your body's ultimate nutrient sensor. So when you have plenty of glucose and amino acids from the food you're eating, mTOR C1 flips on. It basically tells the cell, hey, times are good, let's build new proteins and grow. Conversely, mTOR C2 responds mostly to growth factors to organize the cell's physical structure and just ensure overall survival. It's an incredibly complex dance, but when it comes to the biology of aging, mTOR C1 is absolutely the complex we need to keep our eyes on. Let's look at why that is in section 3, how cells grow old when the switch gets stuck. Okay, here is the absolute crux of the aging problem. For healthy metabolism, mTRC1 needs to turn on and off intermittently. But in our modern environment, where we're constantly grazing and consuming high nutrients and glucose, the switch gets stuck in the on position. So hyperactive mTRC1 is constantly driving protein synthesis, but here is the catch, and it's a big one. While it's aggressively building, it actively shuts down autophagy. Autophagy is your cell's internal cleanup and recycling mechanism. You simply cannot have hyperactive building and vital cellular cleanup happening at the exact same time. It's like trying to renovate a house without ever taking out the trash. And without that vital autophagetic cleanup crew, the cell literally starts to fall apart. This leads directly to what we call the hallmarks of aging. Damaged mitochondria just pile up, spitting out toxic reactive oxygen species. Improperly folded proteins accumulate, which, by the way, is closely tied to diseases like Alzheimer's. Cells eventually become senescent, meaning they stop dividing, but they refuse to die. They basically turn into these zombie cells that just sit there and spew toxic inflammation. Over time, this hyperactive state even depletes our vital stem cells, entirely robbing our tissues of the ability to repair themselves. And we can connect this microscopic cellular damage directly to the macroscopic human level. This stuck switch isn't just giving us a few wrinkles. The hyperactivation of mTORC1 directly contributes to the most severe diseases of aging. Because it's constantly signaling cells to grow, it fuels cancer. The constant nutrient signaling drives insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. And blocking the cleanup of those misfolded proteins, that heavily implicates it in major neurodegenerative and cardiovascular diseases. The biology of aging and the biology of disease are literally driven by the exact same mechanism. So what can we do about it? That's Section 4, hacking the aging process, flipping the switch. If an overactive mTOR pathway is the root of the problem, what happens if we just force the switch off? Well, the most direct way is pharmacological. Remember that original rapamycin compound from the Easter Island dirt? Scientists have actually engineered artificial analogs of it, which are cleverly named rapalogs. See, the original compound had some real issues absorbing properly in the human body. So these new rapalogs are specifically designed to improve solubility and stability. This makes them much safer while perfectly retaining their ability to inhibit that mTORC1 signaling. And modern medicine is actively refining this process right now. Take temsirolimus, for example. It was purposefully modified so it can be administered both intravenously and orally, which gives doctors a lot of flexible delivery options. Then you have everolimus. This one was designed specifically for oral absorption, but with a much shorter half-life of just 28 hours, compared to rapamycin's 60 hours. Pharmacology is basically racing to figure out how to precisely target the mTOR pathway, while minimizing exactly how long the drug lingers in the patient's system. But hey, pharmacology isn't the only way to influence this pathway. Let's bring this science right into your kitchen. Researchers have identified several everyday natural compounds that also inhibit mTOR. You've got ECG, which is found in green tea. There's resveratrol in red wine and grapes, and curcumin, which is derived from turmeric. What is so fascinating here is their mechanism. They activate a totally different pathway called AMPK. Now, AMPK is your cell's low-energy sensor. When it activates, it directly suppresses mTORC1. So essentially, drinking green tea or cooking with turmeric naturally tricks your cells into turning down that master aging switch. How cool is that? Of course, it's not all perfectly simple. Let's move to Section 5, the anti-aging catch, the reality check. We have to remember that because mTOR plays such an absolutely crucial role in normal organ function, artificially inhibiting it comes with some pretty severe consequences. The clinical use of mTOR inhibitors, like those rapalogs we talked about, carries significant adverse effects. We're looking at hyperlipidemia, which means disrupted lipid transport and spiked cholesterol. There's hyperglycemia, where the drugs can actually induce insulin resistance. Patients can also experience really painful mouth sores called stomatitis, and even unexplained lung inflammation or pulmonary toxicity. So, neutrally speaking, the data is very clear. Flipping this master switch with our current drugs is definitely not yet a magic bullet.
Which leaves us with a really profound dilemma, doesn't it? We have found the master switch of aging. In animal models, turning it down extends life, rejuvenates tissues, and literally halts horrific age-related diseases. But right now, today, the drugs we use to control it carry unpredictable and severe side effects. So I'll leave you with this. Does the incredible promise of a longer, disease-free health span outweigh the sobering reality of those risks? Put another way, would you take a pill to live to 120 if it meant navigating these kinds of side effects? It's a massive question that science is racing to answer, and honestly, it's one we are all going to be forced to ask ourselves in the very near future. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.